Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is just going to be a fairly quick video, hopefully gauging a community interest in a potential readathon for Jewish American Heritage Month, which is in May. I've been floating the idea of possibly hosting such a potential readathon since I believe 2 years ago or so, but I do not have nearly enough clout and name recognition on booktube to do that. I'm predicting if anyone is interested in it, maybe I might get lucky if I have 5 people this first year, and if I only have maybe 2 people or something, 2 or 3 people, I really don't think that's worth all the time and effort to host a readathon. Barely anyone is participating, and so just let me know down below in the comments if you guys are seriously interested in this. And because I predict, unless something radically changes, you can knock me over with a feather if that happens, but unless something radically changes and dozens of people suddenly hear about it and express interest and want to do it, I predict, because I predict so few people would be doing it. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. This is completely unscripted. So anyway, do you think it would be more worth our while to just do a read along for a single book, a group read, if we only get a couple of people, fewer than 10 doing this, or maybe only do 2 or 3 prompts instead of the usual 5 I seem to see in most readathons, or maybe one group read and 1 or 2 prompts. So just let me know. I do have a prior video. I will be linking to that at the end of this video, going over my ideas for potential prompts and group reads in much more detail. But anyway, I'm just going to go over a couple of probably the easiest prompts for this potential readathon, because I've been so busy with writing, researching, editing and proofreading and gathering photos for my blogging from A to Z April posts for both of my blogs these past couple of months, as well as writing new material for the third and hopefully final major draft of the book. I still would like to shoot for releasing this year on the 6th of August, but obviously of course my writing plans are a whole off-topic thing. But anyway, because I haven't had much time to do anything outside of writing and drafting and editing and such, I didn't really have any time. I'm sorry, I'm sound like a broken record, to put together lists of potential books for all of these great prompts I had in that prior video. And I'm just if we did do this readathon, it would be the best decision to just go with the prompts that are the easiest to find books for, in the absence of my having a long or even a mid-length list of recommendations. So one of the probably the best prompt to start with would be a book about immigrants, not to the Lower East Side, or if they are in New York City, at least in another neighborhood, maybe even a different borough than Manhattan. For example, immigrants living in Queens. Wow, that's different, instead of the Lower East Side yet again. Or maybe they're living somewhere in the Bronx or on Staten Island, which, believe it or not, really is part of New York City. Or they're living somewhere in Brooklyn. Bonus points if it's not one of the really super well known, almost cliche neighborhoods of Brooklyn. And I realize there is, of course, a lot of historical truth to it. Yeah, of course, many Jewish immigrants did live on the Lower East Side and in various neighborhoods of Brooklyn. But I just like to think outside of the box a little bit, more original stories that we don't really hear so much about, and bring more attention to them, because originality is always key, whether it be a memoir of real life or about fiction. And also another prompt that would probably be easy to find books about Sephardic Jews who came from Spain and Portugal. They were the original Jewish immigrants to the U.S. They started coming in the 17th the 17th century and the 18th century, and they settled on the big older East Coast cities. For example, Touro Synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island, was founded by Sephardim a long time before they actually had their formal building, which is still standing to this day. And every year in August, on the anniversary of a very famous letter President Washington wrote to them in 1740, promising religious liberty in the newly minted U.S., they read that letter. I would love to go, go to that ceremony one of these days. So those would be 2 of the basic prompts that would be easy to find, books about. Another fairly easy prompt would be historical fiction or maybe memoirs about the Jewish community in the colonial or federal era of the U.S., when Charleston had the largest Jewish community, which a position it held until 1830. Again, thinking outside of the box. And I understand most Jews in the U.S. today, or most Jews, non-Jews, are aware of our Ashkenazim from Central and Eastern Europe, and a little bit from Western Europe too. Germany, Russia, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, like France, the Netherlands, things like that. But there's like a whole Jewish community outside of that. And believe it or not, there are, large like pockets and even like big, like, communities and scattered all around the US of Jews who descend from people who are not from Eastern and Central Europe. And that's like one of the things I'm aiming for with this, kind of a prompt and looking to read books like that, just on my own outside of a readathon. So those would be probably like the three like easiest prompts to find books for. And of course, this is giving not so much lead time, but more than like, oh, surprise, overnight, I'm thinking of a readathon, lead time. So you would have a little bit of time to research and like find books like that, buy them through like whatever website you prefer, or get them to the library, or of course like the local neighborhood bookstore is even better than finding them online. And like other prompts, like, well, some of these prompts I didn't really have any time to find them. For example, like Jewish immigrants to the US who came from like India or Ethiopia, or like the Mizrahim, the Jews who never really left them, who not never really, like they never did leave the Middle East after the diaspora. They stayed in like North America and the Middle East, well, the Levant, like Syria, Lebanon, Morocco, Algeria, Libya, and such like that. And I do realize that's a much smaller proportion of the current American Jewish community, but I'm sure there could be some books about that. But again, I would need more time to look up, a long list of like recommended reading materials. And again, like these prompts weren't, I had no time to find it out. So that wouldn't be any of the prompts I would be like, starting out with, like utopian farming movement, or like people who came to the US from a midway point, like, somewhere in Latin America, instead of like directly immigrating. Oh, and a Jewish book award winner, that would be another easy one to find, like books, reading material for. So again, let me know down in the comments which of these prompts you guys like. Do you think we should only do like 2 or 3 prompts if there's like, more than like 5 people doing interest in this? Just, let me know which prompts you think are the best, which ones are your favorite. If you don't like any of them, if you have other prompts in mind. And again, I will be putting down at the end of this video a link to the prior video going over everything in much more detail. And a book by someone who came to the US whose original language was Yiddish, and it was like translated into English. That would be another good thing to look for. For example, Isaac Bashevis Singer, probably one of the Yiddish language writers most non-Jews are very familiar with. Like he wrote his books in Yiddish, and he like came to live in the US. One of them, his final it was posthumously published, and it was his final book. I'm not sure off the top of my head the exact year of his death, but I believe it came out around like 1998, Shadows on the Hudson. I really enjoyed that book. It's set in, I think, the late 40s or the early 1950s. There's a really like fun, colorful cast of characters. I still remember it in detail, like, almost 30 years later. So that's a really good book. And Ladino, which is Judeo-Spanish literature, is a lot like harder to find, like not just in the US, but just like in general, because unfortunately it's become a kind of a minority endangered language. But hopefully it is starting to change a bit. And for like some of the group reads I had in mind, Dara Horn's excellent essay collection, People Love Dead Jews, which I have a prior video about that in depth. I will also be putting a link to that video up on the ending screen. The Rebbe's Army by Sue Fishkoff. That's a great book. Ambivalent Embrace by Rachel Cranston, which is about post-war suburbia. Like I really feel, and I'm not alone in feeling this, that like the post World War II like urged move to suburbia in the US, it really did a lot of like set bad precedents, I guess, for the Jewish community. It made people more like fractured, less of a sense of community. Suddenly they have to start like driving to shul or not go to shul at all, so that increases like not being so very religious anymore. And when you're living in suburbia instead of in the heart of a city, like right in the Jewish community, you're not having as much chance to meet like other Jews, so you start feeling more isolated, and that also increases the intermarriage rate, and not always necessarily raising your children Jewish or like 100% Jewish. You're doing the like half and half thing, which like studies show really kind of messes kids up and confuses them. But anyway, that would be another potential group read if people would be interested in that. Or The Great Jewish Families of New York by Stephen Birmingham, which is, I believe that was about the early German Jewish immigrants who were like more like upper class in the early 19th century, the grandees Americans Sephardic Elite, also by Stephen Birmingham, and World of Our Fathers by Irving Howe. That's a great book about the community on the Lower East Side in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. A Bintel Brief, which is a collection of letters written to the forward, the Vorwärts in Yiddish. It's a classic newspaper. It's still around to this day. I don't really like the political bent it's gone down, but, I don't like to get political on this channel, so I'll just leave it at that. But, it's been a really seminal Yiddish language newspaper, and now in English as well, for a really, really, really long time. And this is just a fun collection of letters people sent to the popular Bintel Brief feature over the years, and you can see the concerns shifting over time. Oh, my husband doesn't want to shave his beard, and people aren't hiring him, and they're slamming the door in his face, and he's a peddler. They just look at him when he comes in for the job interview. No, you must be a Jew, and a religious Jew. We can't have that. And he's insisting the beard is dear to him. What's going on? Or this woman is saying oh, I've been married for 7 years and I love my husband and things seem to be going great otherwise, but he just keeps reminding me you know what, it's sooner rather than later to the time we must divorce under traditional Jewish law because I don't have any children. And the editor says the husband is severely scolded for his inhuman behavior towards his wife. We're living in America now under secular American laws, and even under traditional Jewish laws, you don't have to divorce the wife after 10 years. In fact, most couples don't divorce just because they don't have children. And the editor consoles her, perhaps she'll become a mother before the 10 years are up. And if the husband did divorce her, I hope she found a much better man who did not care she wasn't producing children on demand. And they had concerns oh, I have to hide my religion at work or my ethnicity, and oh, one of my spouse is addicted to television. That was obviously one of the later ones. And this couple who thought this was shocking. This is in the 1940s. It's so many people forget how attitudes were, and what we know now isn't how it was for most of history. They actually thought their young son was mentally ill because he became a vegetarian, and the editor actually suggested, oh, take him to a restaurant so he can learn that everyone eats meat. And this got some pushback. The president of the Jewish Vegetarian Society of America wrote him a letter saying, I'm shocked you would say this. Vegetarianism is not mentally ill. A lot of people do it in America and all over the world, and it's very in line with traditional Judaism, kindness to animals and such like that. So you just see the concerns shifting over time. There are just so many fun things. I don't think I've done a video yet on this book based on a blog post. I've wanted to do it, but I was always saving it and saving it for Jewish American Heritage Month, and I've just never got around to making that video, or just so many other interesting potential group reads I mentioned in that video. So just let me know down in the comments which of these prompts you guys like the most. Do you like the idea of just more of a read along to start out with, because it's probably not going to be too many people, or if you only want maybe 2 or 3 of the prompts instead of the whole slew of 5 prompts or so I've seen for other readathons, or maybe 1 group read plus maybe 2 prompts, or any combination or permutations or such like that. Just let me know down in the comments, as well as if you are definitely very, very strongly interested in this readathon, because if no one's interested in it, I'm not going to do it and just push it off again until potentially next year. And oh, and also I almost forgot this. If we do go ahead with this readathon, would you like me to make a tag video for this? I know pretty much all readathons have a tag video associated with them. And do you have any ideas for potential questions for this tag video? How many questions? 5, 10, lucky number 13, lucky number 11. For me, just all sorts of whatever ideas you have. Just playing this basically by ear. Hopefully 5 people or more would want to sign up, but no hard feelings. I'm not really expecting pretty much anyone to take note of this readathon or spread the word. But if we do get enough people, that would be totally awesome. So again, I really look forward to seeing your ideas and suggestions and stuff down in the comments. So thanks again very much for watching. Bye.